Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Owl season finale live here at Laguna Seca. We have a monumental championship battle on hand to tell you about. But first, before we get into that, welcome in and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson again for the finale, and of course, Nick Setnick behind the cameras. Well, Ryan, we have a championship to decide. We have the announcement for the new Night Owl season coming up. And of course, we have a difficult racetrack, 90-minute race. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, exactly. Very much a silver championship still to wrap up. Very much we're talking down within, we're calculating it before, which we'll get into a bit later, handfuls of points, and in fact less than handfuls. 90 minutes around Laguna Seca, which is really a track that makes or breaks certain drivers. Some love it and some absolutely hate it. And yeah, next season Night Owl looking very, very interesting. So we'll see what happens with the silver drivers in this. People to keep an eye on will be that Sebastian Brunier in that 777.
Well, we also have a pro championship to settle as well. That not done and dusted. It's going to be basically a straight up fight between Harry Conway and Jason Tyler LaValle. It's going to be very interesting to see how everything shakes out. We are going to try and keep you up to date here in the box. We're all going to be doing the maths tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to provide you some amount of closure. And of course, after qualifying, we will look at the overall point standings anyway. But for right now, job number one is going to be about getting qualifying done and getting the best possible start. The easiest way to win, Ryan, is the simplest way, and that is to, well, qualify well and win. Win the race, win the championship, get it all done, but it isn't that easy.
No, especially not at Laguna Seca, which is very much a track that is incredibly easy to bin it at. We have massive sausage curbs, which I'm pretty sure no driver wants to go anywhere near this time. People who have got the sort of the slightly more twitchy in cars with the mid-engines and the Porsches, you know, a little bit of a wrong move down the corkscrew. We've seen it happen before where it's just all come undone for drivers. And yeah, just consistency at this track. It's quite a fast lap at a 121. Sort of is the current what we're sitting at provisional pole. But yeah, so will do a lot of laps, a lot of times that you can slip off the road if you're not careful.
Yes, indeed. And I got to tell you, we will talk a lot about the scenarios. There's more scenarios in the Silver Championship than the Pro one. Like I said before, the Pro is pretty much a straight up fight between two drivers at this point. But that all being said, it is going to be very close. And of course, a 90-minute finale instead of the normal 60. That is a RCI sort of trademark at this point, or very interesting. We always tend to do longer races at the end of the season, whether they are a 75-minute race or a 90, or in some cases, we also have a mid-season race that's double the length. Well, tonight, this is a 90-minute race at Laguna Seca. Very easy to throw your car and yourself off of the racetrack here. It's very important for everybody to not do that, but also you have to be extra mindful if you are involved in a championship battle here, that you cannot be the one to get caught up in other people's accidents. High pressure situation. I do not envy these drivers tonight.
No, basically, like I said, Tyler, Jason LaValle, and Harry Conway, those are the guys who want to duke it out now. But you've just got to be so mindful around here. Put sort of attention to waved yellow flags and anything if people start getting spun and we get back markers, which is not uncommon if we've seen people have damage go back into the pits and then they end up everyone out of position. And it starts becoming really quite a traffic game of who can manage it better towards the end of the race. And we've seen it plenty times in RCI. Who can manage the back markers better sometimes can gain that crucial position, especially coming into pit road as well. That's another place where you can gain heaps of time on drivers because it's quite a difficult pit entry. And well, I've seen a couple of people to have a leave their mark on that tire wall.
Yeah, you sure have. I have as well. And I believe the last time we were here, I was with you on comms as well, Ryan. And I think it was a crazy race at the end. A lot of teams throwing it off of the road. And you have to be very careful about that. You also have to be very careful about track limits. It's not the most track limits heavy track out there, but you can take yourself off and give yourself that. Don't think we have had a race in the past 2 or 3 times we've been here that somebody in the pack did not get a drive-through for running over the curbs. And it's not malicious. Nobody's attempting to run through the grass and the dirt here and make up time. It's all accidental, getting it wrong. So very easy to do that as well. 7 p.m. here at Laguna Seca, qualifying underway. 15-minute session for everybody to get one fast lap in. Practice is over, and of course we saw Benjamin Heilman leading the overall, and just like last week where we had a silver win overall, anything is possible. Laguna Seca, a different animal. The BOP hits different here, and it's anybody's race. It's absolutely game on.
Yeah, the balance of performance, and also just like I said, the people who can handle this car. It's Laguna Seca is such a different track that you have to drive it. It really rewards a different style of driving. But yeah, for qualifying, basically perfect conditions that we've got today. It's nice and cool. Well, I say they're cool. It's only 21, fully optimum track, so should see some quite fast lap times. And looking at it, the first person who's going to be setting our lap is Rogers in the 119 Aston Martin. Very, very strong silver driver, has had some really great races over this season. So in free practice, wasn't quite up there with his fellow silvers, but that could all, be a bit of mind games. Sometimes you don't want to show your full pace in free practice, do you? Because then people know what you're doing.
Yes, that's also true. There is the inevitability of mind games, but I don't think Benjamin Heilman is playing mind games with anybody here. Everybody involved in the championship fight, including Seb Brunier, who has been dominating not only silver class, but overall been flying on a huge high. The Frenchman that got their first class win was rewarded with a first overall win in sequential weeks, and it's going to be hard to stop him, but it is still possible to beat Seb Brunier here today, and nobody knows that more than Benjamin Heilman, who was quickest in practice, and this man, Alex Rogers.
Yeah, and just coming up to the end of the lap through the last corner, much sharper than you actually think, and this is where you can sometimes invalidate your lap running out wide. But let's see what the provisional pole time might be, and that is a 22.611.
Yeah, that's going to fall. That's not going to stand, I'm afraid. That is a decent lap, all considered, but that is not going to be what wins you the pole here today. A 22.611, not bad. The Powered by Instant Coffee Alex Rogers, who won the first round of this championship, and then sort of just blended in with the furniture a little bit, did Alex Rogers. He hasn't gone away or had particularly bad luck other than one round, but he's just been overshadowed by the likes of Benjamin Heilman and Seb Brunier. But even with all that said, both of them can still lose this championship to Rogers very easily.
Yeah, because the other thing now to take into account that we've had is one of the Porsches, that's Baumeister, takes a spin, which might not be the first time we see a Porsche spinning off track so far. What we have to take into account is there is a drop round, which is one of the reasons why it is everyone's game. It's another McLaren falling prey to those outside curbs. If you just touch the curbs, you are gone. And looking on the timing screen, that was our Mike Jones. I mean, I should have really expected it with how bright and luminous that car is. He did mention to us that he was running a different livery today. His teammate not here, so they don't have to look the same. So it appears that Mike's basically taken the car and just made it that little bit brighter in typical Mike Jones fashion.
Well, I've heard that new Mike Jones really slaps, and he really slapped that wall and had to reset to the pit lane. But that's okay. It is a very tiny track, a 1 minute 22 or 1 minute 23, I should say, will get you around here 10 minutes. You can have a whole basket full of laps. Not a big deal. Michael Fazel here, the PSR Audi, making his way around, showing an expertly taken corkscrew. I always found the lead up and the exit to the corkscrew, meaning the corner before and after, to be the bigger challenge than the corkscrew itself, right?
Yeah, well, the corkscrew, a lot of times, I've seen a lot of people sort of take it as an S-bend, and I always find that the corkscrew is the better line that I find is more of a straight line. As Fazel improves up to a 122.3, which was second place, and then immediately knocked back down as Samir Foch takes the provisional pole so far at the 21.8. But as you says, I think that there's probably a little bit more time in each of these drivers. Looking on my timing screen, we do have quite a lot of people trending up green, so I expect quite a shuffle up in the next few laps.
One thing that I have noticed here in recent times is how good Lamborghini seems to be. Whenever this track came out for ACC, it was an absolute nightmare to drive, and it doesn't seem to be that way anymore. Obviously, we've had several content updates and revisions to the BOP and some of the handling, and I think with all of that, that has made the Lamborghini a formidable opponent around here. And the reason I mention that is because every time we've been back here since the 2020 tire update, as far as I'm aware, there's been a Lamborghini doing well. But Michael Fazel's going to lose it here, and that's how simply you can lose your time in place and potentially even lose a championship that you've been working so hard on. And that is what everyone is going to have to try and avoid. It's not the widest of racetracks, and it is not the most hospitable of racetracks, and you are going to see that. Well, we saw Fazel, now his sort of pseudo teammate, James Leader in the PSR2 Porsche, going through the corkscrew there. And Foch still has the fastest time, a 1:21.702, 2/10 over Baumeister. And Renoir goes third, so we have two Lamborghinis now in the top three, half a second off. Actually, I take that back. Harry Conway has just went third with a what appears to be a 21.9. What does James Leader have coming to the line? Looking good, and it lost it at the line. Was not an improvement, a 22.332. Not good enough to advance his position. Harry Conway, though, just mentioned, went third. Conway trying to win it the old-fashioned way here, Ryan. Win the race and win the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And as he says, Lamborghini looking very strong. I think some of the mid-engine cars, more than others, really improved with they had the slip angle update, which was an aerodynamics update that ACC applied. So now they are much more predictable when you're at an angle through corners, and that made some cars really a lot nicer to drive on the limit rather than just snapping and killing you before you've even thought about it. They now give you a lot more warning. But from what we've heard, sometimes that actually hurt some of the other cars. I mean, when we talked to Sebastian Brunier before, he was saying that the McLaren pre-update was actually better. So yeah, some cars loving it, some cars losing it. And coming up to the line, Harry Conway will take the provisional pole at a 21.579. Pulls over for that, probably for some new tires and to try again.
That was more like it. A 21.579 puts Harry Conway quickest over Samir Foch in the number 8. So it's Lamborghini leading Lamborghini. And then to Porsche's Luke Baumeister for PSR2. Coming to the line here, looking for an improvement. Will need more than a 10th to improve on their current position, but what's this lap time going to look like? And it will be not quicker, about 1/10 slower, going to reset 5 minutes. Alarm bells will be going off in drivers' heads now to set a quick lap had they not already. 13 drivers within 1 second, and the entire field pretty much covered by 2. As James Leader continues, and Harry Conway just now leaving the pit lane. No doubt, Ryan, as you said, getting some new tires.
Yeah, and like we actually, if anything, during this session, it's cooled off slightly. So it was, we've dropped 1 degree, but yeah, sun setting here at Laguna, looking absolutely beautiful going over the horizon. Probably annoying some drivers in the eyes, though, as they come up to some corners around the back of the track. But yeah, actually starting to cool off, so might see just that little bit more from some of these, and probably when people have changed tires, they might have put a little bit more pressure into them just to try and get optimum pressure faster for these last few flying laps.
Daniel Herzog all the way back in the 15th place position, and this has been the tale of their qualifying effort to this point. They did a decent lap, mind you, a 22.5 or 22.6 for DH Racing, but going off the track like that will not help their time. James Leader continuing, who appears to be up on their time a little bit, does the number 13 Porsche.
It would appear a lot of time for Leader. It seems to be, we've always noticed that this car, it's just that last corner that he always seems to get really, really good delta right up until the last corner. So maybe there's just a little bit of an issue with the Porsche. I think it's with the Porsche though, the fuel balance changes it so drastically. So it is really a different beast on low fuel than it is on high fuel. And we'll see if he can hold it through the last corner. It's looking good. Coming up to the line though, there should be an improvement. And it was a 21.774, puts him into 3rd place, just about 2/10 off the leader Harry Conway, but he is now the leading silver Porsche.
Levin Ipek here, trying to improve out of 14th place in the AMG. It's hard to believe that just a few months ago that the AMG was the car of choice for nearly everybody that wanted or was looking to win races. And then, wouldn't you know it, a few updates later, the BOP caught up to the AMG. It's still weird for me not to see a field full of AMGs, but the BOP working quite well for nearly everybody, though admittedly, if I had to have one criticism, is that, come on, help a BMW out, would you? But Ipek coming to the line, looking to improve out of 14th. Would like to start somewhere inside the top 10. What's this lap going to be? And it will be no improvement at the line.
And yeah, as he says, it wasn't even that long ago that it was just heaps and heaps of Mercedes. That one being the 2020 Mercedes as well, though, which, yeah, it seems to have another entire different set of bop. I do believe we have one 2015 in the field, which is the 23 of McConnell as well. And it's just so different. This car, though, Chris Vining in the GTR, the 101, when was the last time you saw a GTR really being used in any sort of league? They used to be quite vicious with the straight line speed they possessed, and it sort of fell off slowly as if more current and more up-to-date cars got introduced to ACC. So it's really nice to see one, and it's had some great races. The Silverstone race was doing amazingly in, and Chris Vining up to the line, see what he's got, and that will put him all the way up to 3rd with a 21.723.
Well, that's 3rd, and perhaps also as importantly, that is for pole position in the silver category. And talk about Vining, he drives that GTR just about as good as anybody can do. And keep in mind, folks, that's only 1.5 tenths off of our pole sitter, Harry Conway. An excellent job. Baumeister does go to 3rd and pole for silver, though. And it's crazy to think Vining probably could have won a race or two this season had luck favored that team. The ETR just got yeeted a few times, completely not of Vining's making, and Silverstone also sticks out as a sort of a low point in my mind as well for the ETR. But had things gone differently, that car and that driver vining in that GTR has always had the pace.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those drivers that every single time, it's a bit like the 777 of Sebastian. You always think that Vining he's on for a good result, and then just as something happens, which is a shame all the time. But maybe this is the race that it turns around. P2 in silver class as of yet. We'll see what the final silver drivers can do as they all filter through. Alex Rogers appears to be just about holding Delta on this lap. We'll see when he comes to the line. Benjamin Heilman, though, just in front, does appear to be trending up. So this could be a shake-up for the silver class going to the line. And nope, it was not an improvement. Oh, no, in fact, no, tell a lie. It was an improvement. It was a 22.089, but not enough to bump him all the way up. Benjamin Heilman moves up. Second place in silver. And if we've looked while we were briefly averted our eyes, Baumeister actually took pole of the race.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if that's Baumeister or Baumeister. I think it has to have an I in it, but it is so difficult to not say Meister. But Baumeister, I think, is how that's supposed to be pronounced. Though we talked to him this season, and he was very, very charming. He said that I don't care what you call me, but other way, that is pole position for the 48 Porsche, and here is your final for qualifying for the 90-minute Night Owl finale here at Laguna Seca. Baumeister leading the field, a 121.531, good enough to take pole over Harry Conway, who is the leading pro driver. Samir Foch in third place is your starting podium positions. Behind them, Benjamin Heilman, who is chasing the silver championship, will start second in class, but fourth overall. Vining behind him rounds out the top five. Then leader Lavallee, who is also looking for the silver championship, is Lavallee. Or not, excuse me, Lavallee looking for the pro championship, I should say, with Harry Conway. And Rogers behind him is looking for the silver championship and can win it here today. Renoir and Rodriguez are the top 10. Ipek, Flamger, Eckhar, Fazel, Litherland, Alari, Herzog, and then all the way back in 18th, championship leader in silver, Seb Brunier has a lot of work to do today if he wants to win his very first RCI championship. Galbraith and Audi is the top 20, and I know we have about 23 cars in the field, but that is the starting top 20. Well, we've talked about points. We've talked about a championship. Somebody is going to win it today. In fact, two people are going to win championships today. So let's start off by looking at the championship points. And here we have it. The GT3 Pro Championship standings are as this. Do bear in mind, there is a drop round in the championship, and we will try to keep you informed about that, but it near as makes no difference between Harry Conway, who currently leads the GT3 Pro field, and Tyler Jason Lavallee. It really doesn't matter between them. Winner is going to take all, as far as we know, between the Brit and the Canadian today. Behind him, Ipek, Sonwa, and Foch are the top five. And even further back, Jordan Sons, Ryan Renoir, Dylan Ackar, and Litherland, the top 10. All of these teams, though, still fighting for position, still fighting for championship points, including Alari, Rodriguez, Knappen, Swinson, Jelinek, and Young, have not made most of the rounds this season. And moving swiftly on to silver, where it is a bit of a more complicated picture. Seb Brunier, Alex Rogers, and Benjamin Heilman are all within a shot to win this championship. You may think, Jesse, how is that possible? Seb Brunier has 296 points. And yes, you are correct. But again, with the drop round, it's actually just a few points between these three. and we will keep you abreast of that. But as it stands, it's 296 for Seb Bernier, who's leading the Silver Championship over Alex Rogers, and then 1 point behind is Benjamin Heilman. Behind them, Ben Norton and Michael Fazel are the top 5, and then McConnell, Baumeister, Vining, Leader, and Daly the top 10. And a little bit further back, Anderson, Flamger, Herzog, Audi, and Mike Jones, the top 15, who had an impressive run last week, despite saying that they were not going to have an impressive run. Ted Edwards, 16th. Pierce, Plabani, Devonshire, Galbraith, the top 20. And I think there are a few drivers behind this. Yes, indeed. Topher, Jackson, and Howes are the 23 silver drivers, and I don't think any of the drivers currently pictured are in the race today. Very complicated, a lot of math to be done here today, Ryan Mawson, but it is going to be an enthralling race, and unfortunate qualifying for Seb Bernier. Now he has to drive his way through the field.
Yeah, Seb's got to sort of get his head down and hope that there's either something that happens ahead or there is a different strategy call. Might be with the fuel, the tires, hope that someone ahead of you starts ruining them, because we're quite a cold morning here at Laguna Seca. Well, cold night, evening, even 18 degrees, which makes it just that little bit easier to grain the tires. If they're not getting heat into them, they will start to be chewed up if you're absolutely flat on them from lap 1. So be interesting to see what happens with that. And the other thing that I found really interesting in qualifying, if you noticed, so our pole position driver, he did not have all 3 purple sectors. Each sector is held by P1, P2, and P3. No one has a perfect lap. It's all spread around, which means that really we should see, a really good race where people are pulling away slightly, and it looks like Foch, for example, was the strongest in the last sector, but that Porsche of Baumeister just rocketing in the middle sector, and then Harry Conway is quickest in the first sector. So see what happens at race start, but it's going to be exciting no matter what.
So you're saying it's close?
Just a little bit.
By the way, I want to point out something about Harry Conway, if our broadcaster Nick can just focus on him for a second. Harry Conway, if you guys haven't noticed at home, he has had a different name for his team every week, and in some cases it's been poking fun at us in the broadcast booth. Sometimes it's poking fun at other people in the race, other RCI staff members, etc., and so forth. It's Execute Order 69 this week, and the reason it is Execute Order 69, other than nice, is we took a tally here at the RCI staff group about Star Wars and realized about a third of our staff have never seen Star Wars. I immediately voted to have them expelled from staff here at RCI. Absolutely incredible. But there's also another meaning of that, of course, as well. They very much fancy themselves the Jedi to the other Sith that lurk out there in the galaxy of sim racing, who, let's say, maybe don't respect the spirit of sim racing.
And you still ended up with one having to comms, because I was one of those. It was when we had the tally. Who has seen Star Wars?
How is it possible that you haven't seen any of the Star Wars films? You know, they've made 9 of those things.
Yeah, I know. I just never have. I even watched other things when I was a kid, or I was like, building cars with my granddad. It was basically my childhood.
Look, you can watch Star Wars and build a car at the same time. I have watched A New Hope and build a carburetor before. It's absolutely possible. All things considered, though, all in good fun here, and we thank you guys and gals for being with us on a Saturday night, late night for the European crowd, as we are going to go 90 minutes, that's 1.5 hours, into the nighttime, or at least the evening, here at Laguna Seca in California, and we are going to crown some champions at the end of this one, and it is going to be a very fun night. Ryan, thanks for being with me all season long, and the same with you, Nick, and it's going to be You have to get a good start here. Ryan, take it away.
It's typical night owl fashion, and it's always right down to the line, waiting for those lights to go, and we go green for the last time this season. Night owl. And the Porsche has an amazing drive, sort of very typical Porsche things. Foch looking up the inside, but nothing to be as Harry Conway and Baumeister side by side through turn 2. Turn 3, a slight twitch from the Lamborghini of Conway just gives Baumeister that tiny bit of breathing space. Looking in the background, everyone else filing through. The ETR being slightly pushed out wide there by the other Porsche.
That was a lot of trust that Harry Conway put in Baumeister there. I probably wouldn't have done that knowing that there's a championship on the line. That is a lot of courage and a lot of trust by Harry Conway. Hung it out there on the outside, maintained second place. Foch was not able to get that position, and now it is challenge confirmed. What does Harry Conway do? Remember, there's no overall points in Night Owl. It is all about the category wins, and Harry Conway has won his category this season without winning overall. It doesn't matter. The points are separate. So what does Conway do? Is his vision focused in front or behind?
Well, that's the $1 million question for a lot of racing drivers in it, and what happens in their mind is very interesting. And it would appear we have a quick race replay. This is the 777 of Seb, who is the Silver Championship leader. Has been possibly caught up in a lap 1 accident. Coming into the corkscrew, everyone concertina's up. And there we go.
It just got spun.
Just tapped around. Just everybody concertinaed up at that point.
It's so very strange. I know the corkscrew is a very unique racetrack element and would likely not be allowed today if suggested for new construction, but it's very rare to see a pileup in the corkscrew. But there you have it. Lap 1 pileup in the corkscrew, and I can only assume the likes of IPEC Mike Jones and also Seb Brunia, who we saw there, were also involved. But to me, the 777 just got turned.
I think everyone slammed on the brakes and had sort of concertinaed up, and the 777 just got spun. Like after the accident that's happened, they were just sort of there and ended up being turned around. Looked like, though, there was a slight tap of the wall, hopefully not too much damage, and continue on with that. We do still have a mandatory pit stop, but you wouldn't really want to be going an hour 27 on one set of tires.
Yeah, I would have thought that, but last night's race led me to believe that it's completely okay to do if you are a particularly fast driver. Mikkel Sundstrom yesterday did 2 hours on one set of tires around Zolder, of all places. Somebody might try it, though.
Yeah, it's not out of the question. I think Pirelli will have had quite a stunned face on when Michael Sundstrom gave those tires back, and just there you go. Let's see what you can analyze from these, and then basically just nothing left of them.
Well, we know that Mikkel Sundstrom can go 2 hours on a set of tires. I reckon some of the drivers in today's race could do an hour and a half, though I fear and feel that might be very car dependent. And we were talking to some of the drivers post-race yesterday about the fuel load. You actually alluded to this earlier about the Porsche feeling completely different. It's a whole different animal. Every car goes through changes with weight as the fuel load burns off, but more importantly, the Porsche completely changes its attitude 180 degrees on a low fuel load.
Yeah, well, you fill up a Porsche, that fuel tank hanging out almost in front of the headlights, and you fill the tank and you start to get understeer, and then the mid-race, it's actually really, really pleasant to drive, when the car is back balanced again. And as the fuel burns off more and more, then the rear end starts getting skittish. And generally by then, if you've burnt a full tank, it means that you've done a full tank on those tires, and it just starts getting really leery. And then pressures are even harder to deal with, because you've almost got to set them where it's like they're slightly too high, and then they're perfect for a long stint. But as the fuel oil burns off, they'll go too low, which also doesn't help with the balance of the car. It's such a finite car to get everything perfect on. If you can get everything perfect on it, though, there is some absolutely ultimate speed to be had out of it. But you've got to get, it's like trying to get all the elements together. You have to line everything up, and then you may get that lap.
Well, I just saw a local yellow in between 3 and 4, and that was the 197 of John Daly, who had crashed there. But what's strange about that is that's basically a straightaway with a dog leg in it. And I'm curious maybe if the 197 got spun, because you don't see too many accidents right in the middle of that straightaway. But either way, has got the car going in the right way. Seb Brunier, who was all the way at the back of this field at the end of lap 1, has regained several spots up to 20th place. Is Seb right on the back of IPEC, mind you. But IPEC's trying to get around Galbraith. Well, we've made it about 6 minutes into the race. It's time for the championship check-in. Keep in mind, these are all rough approximations as Tyler Jason LaValle goes off into the dirt and does not want to impede. The Aston of Rogers there lets him go through. And here is the rough sort of guesstimation of the maths of what the championship looks like right now. As they run, Harry Conway is winning the championship in Pro. And as they run, Benjamin Heilman is winning the championship in Silver. We'll check back in later when and if that changes, and I suspect it might, because this race has only gotten started, and I feel like Seb Brunier is not going to be the only car that's in a championship fight that's going to get spun around or be turned around backwards at some point in this race.
Not just that, like we just saw with the Audi of Tyler Jason LaValle, that was just the smallest touch of one of those sausage curbs and you're off. And Laguna Seca, I mean, on our broadcast cameras, it looks a lot wider, but I can tell you what, when you're in the car and if you have had an off, you can definitely say that those concrete barriers are a lot closer to the track than you would like. You go off and there's basically no runoff between you and certain death. So I would expect a couple of drivers later on, you know, maybe after they've had a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of tire wear, we might see a few mistakes coming in.
Well, no mistakes for Chris Vining yet. The UTR going well. We documented earlier at the end of qualifying that had things been a little bit differently, Chris Vining could have been a championship contender in Silver in the GTR, and how lovely it is. I feel like we've commented every race of the season how lovely it is for there to be a GTR in the field, especially one as quick as Vining's 101 has been. Well, they currently sit fourth in class, but they're not fighting for a position in class. That's Ryan Renoir in front in the 732 Lamborghini, and they're trying to get around. And the 101 has caught them, but as they say in racing, catching them's one thing.
And passing is very much another. He's also now got to keep your eyes on the mirrors at some point, as we can see Alex Rogers just slowly creeping up on this battle, and it wouldn't surprise me if he wants to get involved. Looking at the last lap times between both of those drivers, they are very, very close. So if Vining starts battling Renoir too hard, he might actually find himself in a battle with his Silver class.
And of course, this is all on the line for Rogers, the winner of race 1 in the championship, and has finished on numerous podiums, but has largely played second fiddle to other winners. But that has not stopped him from being in the title hunt. And that title hunt, he's very much in the fight. Job 1 would be get on the Silver podium and then go up there and worry about catching Heilman, who is in who is in first in class, 4th overall. He's only 8th is Rogers, so it's very much a possibility, as we saw Herzog lose a spot to McConnell there.
On the splitter cam down the corkscrew, a little bit of a twitch from the Ferrari there, but you can really see the altitude change on this track is just immense, and especially when you see it in real life, the sim never quite depicts it, but from that hill all the way down to what is the start line and then down to turn 2, it's just like dropping off the side of a mountain. It's pretty immense. And back to Vining, the 101, still trying to get around Renoir. You can sort of see where each car has its moment, though. The GTR being very good in any of the straights, and that was a slight runoff on the grass by Ryan Renoir, but just can't capitalize on it. The straights aren't long enough yet, but every single time there is one, the GTR gets to flex its muscle. It closes right up, and it's just a little bit slower through the corners, but you can't really knock it considering that car underneath all the skin is actually 6 years old now.
Yes, indeed. For all the talking about the Lamborghinis that we did in practice and qualifying, we find ourselves a Porsche leading. The top six, in fact, are solely populated by Porsches and Lamborghinis, 3 of each. And this is your leader, Luke Baumeister, in the PSR number 2 team Porsche. That gap continues to go in and out. It was under a second, and then it was 1.5 seconds. And I think it's a lot like what you were saying. You very astutely pointed out after qualifying, nobody in the top 3, Baumeister, Conway, or Foch, none of them had all 3 purple sectors. They all had one of their own. And I think that's what you're seeing here is one end of the track, Conway's getting beaten, and then he's gaining all that time back immediately as going off into the dirt there. I believe that was either Rogers or Renoir. I'm going to... No, wait a minute. Wasn't there a car in front of Rogers a minute ago?
I don't actually know. There's no local yellow, so I would assume that it was just Rogers having a slight off. We did see earlier on that off from Jason Lavalley. Here's James Lear trying to go around the outside of Benjamin Heilman. And in fact, that's actually Foch as well. Looks like the Lamborghini of Foch is slow. Benjamin Heilman trying to cut back into the last corner. Doesn't look, though, as he has... And in fact, no, tell a lie. That does look like he's got the slightly better run. Foch will defend it. But can it do? Thinking, it's going to be briefly almost 3 wide, or thinking about it. James Leader thinks better of that and pulls out. Benjamin Heilman now all over the back of Foch. So possibly that Lamborghini just having a slight twitch, and now he's in striking distance. The Porsche is really wanting to move around, but he can't. Benjamin Heilman can't be too crazy because, as I says, a bit like Rogers and Vining, he can attack the car in front, which is nothing for his championship, but he will be put into a championship battle behind him.
Also, to add on to that point, Heilman cannot concede this position to leader either. This is very important. The difference between second and third in points could very well dictate who wins the Silver Championship. And keep in mind, if Heilman loses a position to leader, that's as good as Rogers passing somebody in class. And with Seb Brunier continuing to make their way through the field, 16th now, good progress being shown by Brunier. You don't know where it's all going to shake out. So Heilman has to not only attack the slower car in front of Foch, he has to keep leader behind him at the same time and maintain his own pace. It's an unfavorable position for Heilman, who has won this season. But that's what happens. You come down to these moments, these pressure-packed moments at the end of a season, and these are the defining moments, and we may be seeing one right here. Leader not being overly aggressive, has either backed off or the pace in front of him has picked up one of the two, but they all sort of spread out, at least for the time being.
At least for now, but as it says, we'll see when these cars start changing. Some drivers are just better as the fuel burns off. So Heilman's, like I said, he's got to he's got to pick his feet up and run and hope that Foch can keep the pace up in front of him. And it does look, though, like Heilmann, when the pace was up, was just pacing Foch. So he's got to hope that Foch continues his pace and Heilmann can run away, and then Leader, he can sort of leave him slowly. But especially when you're in matched machinery, both of those silver drivers in Porsches, it's not like you're versing another car where you know for a fact that you have a speed advantage, or if you're in a Porsche, you have them over the brakes. It's basically, can you outdrive the person behind you? And if anything, they have the advantage over you in that slipstream.
You don't really think about that too much whenever you're at Laguna Seca, but that is important. The slipstream, the big ol' suck as they call it. I think we actually had a team named Give Me the Suck before in reference to using the slipstream of their very slippy car in the air. This is your leader of the race, Luke Baumeister, getting it done. 2 seconds over Conway now. Conway clearly falling back a little bit. I think there's a common thread here that all of the Lamborghinis are falling off a little bit. In fact, Renoir has in fact now been passed by Vining, and Rogers in 8th place is now looking to get by him as well. And Heilmann, who caught Samir Foch, I think there is a common thread here, but either way, Baumeister getting it done. A silver leading overall for the 2nd week in a row, though this a very different circumstance indeed.
Yeah, so it could be like what we've mentioned before. When you fill a car up, that very much changes it. So it's possible that the Lamborghinis in race trim are just suffering that tiny little bit. So they were really quite happy in qualifying, but now you've filled them up. Now that you've given it full race prep, they're just falling off. Samir Foch, though, does appear to be pulling away from Heilmann, which, I mean, for him will actually be quite a godsend, because now he doesn't have to worry about getting around the slower car in front of him. He can concentrate on his own battle, which, if you look, they now haven't really spread out. James Leader just about hanging on to the back of Heilmann, which I expect to really see that unless Heilmann can break the toe, because once you've got into that 1 second gap, like I say, you don't really think it at Laguna Seca, but anything around this track, there's a few straights that you can make it work to your advantage, especially if you're in the same machinery. It'll be hard to break it.
Interesting statistic about Samir Foch really quickly. He is the only driver in the top 5, or actually even beyond that, in the pro category that doesn't have as IPEC goes off there. That is what we talked about in pre-race. So easy to do. But back to Samir Foch. He is 5th in the championship. He has not scored a fast lap, a pole position. He hasn't even finished on the podium, but still maintains solid 5th and only a few points out of 4th place. That's how consistent Samir Foch has been, and he's continuing that today, albeit in 2nd place. That'd be an excellent way to end the season, with a podium.
Yeah, and sometimes it's sort of consistency wins championships, and we've seen it before where the people who have had just they finish strongly, but they're never sort of on the podium every time, versus the people who have one podium race and then spin and they finish way down the order. It really shakes it up, and those are the type of drivers, though, that you really need to keep your eye on, because you don't think that they might be a threat to your championship, and they've had so much good consistency, and then at the end they really show their colors, and that can be it for them for your championship.
What's that old saying? Speed wins races, consistency wins championships. And I think that's about the truest sort of thing that you can possibly say, as we go back to IPAC, who a lap ago was off into the dirt right before the corkscrew, but is right back to business. McConnell getting the position back after IPAC made the pass and overran the corner. IPAC now trying to get it back again for the third time. Nothing more frustrating, Ryan, than making a pass, going a bit too deep, giving it back up, and having to do it all over again.
Yeah, and it's annoying for both parties because now obviously McConnell's just thinking, well, you passed me, and now you're going to slow me up once again. Does look like though there's a slight bit of damage, and I believe IPEC was one of the cars that was held up in that corkscrew sort of concertina crash. You can see on the bumper there's a bit of scuffing, as per se. And jumping back to what is now going to be the Aston Martin Cup, which is Alex Rogers versus Alare. Sort of another driver we haven't really talked about much. Seen Alare in some quite good battles over the season, and now has got another fellow mashed machinery driver behind him.
Yes, indeed. And Rogers needs to make this pass. It's not for position, and I think that might be position conceded there by Alari. And I think that was an orchestrated pass. So go ahead and put Rogers up inside the top 10 overall, but perhaps more critically, that wasn't a pass that would pay him points, though that does make him one step closer. He's actually got quite a ways to go to get up to the likes of Vining Leader and this man here, Benjamin Heilman, who is holding steady in second place. And nothing has changed, by the way, for those of you playing the game at home. As they run championship check-in, Harry Conway would win the Pro Championship and Benjamin Heilman would win the Silver Championship. So nothing's changed in 20 minutes, but we will keep you posted. Everybody has to do a mandatory pit stop. The pit window is open now, so that can be completed. In fact, Daly has already pitted. Mike Jones and Flamger are in pit road now.
But it looks like to me that Heilman is once again sort of catching Foch. So as you says earlier, I think the Lamborghinis might be slightly ailing as the race goes on, which is kind of an interesting thing with how strong they are in qualifying. So now Heilman's really got to make the call. Does he go for the move on Foch? Because you could end up in the same situation. He has started to gap leader, which is sort of, one half of what you want, but now you've got to the driver in front of you. As that's McConnell going all kinds of sideways down the hill. And that was place conceded, and that is Sebastian Brunier making his way back up the field to now into 15th overall, sort of slowly making his way back up. Have to keep an eye on where Seb comes. Currently our Silver Championship leader, but just not having the race that he quite wanted today, as that's not good for Mike Jones. That is
oh
not
dear. Well, do you know what it is? And I know exactly what happened to him because me and Mike Jones have had this conversation before. If you have ever been to Laguna Seca, there are about 4 lines painted across the track where you think pit out ends. Well, in ACC, as with the original Assetto Corsa, it is the very last line after the pit wall ends that is the timing line. In real life, that is not the case. There is a cone that sits behind that at the first or second line that actually ends pit lane. But that's not the case in AC. It never has been, and it will catch you out. And that is either that or he sped coming in. But one way or another, I have certainly sped on pit out, seeing the cone and thinking that's where pit out ends. I don't know how common that is in Europe, but in America we like to mark our pit out lines with a cone reference, but not the case here. Also, pit entry very difficult here. By the way, I've been doing some research here, Ryan Mawson. Nobody will be going the entire distance on one set of tires today because the random pit requirement for this race is, well, a pit or a tire change.
Well, there you go. That makes that sort of easy. So it will mean that I think some of these drivers will be just splitting it half and half on fuel. So I expect a little bit more time lapping, and then we should see the usual wave come in as Mike Jones pulls back into pit lane to serve that stop-go 30, which is
Oh dear.
it's just painful sat there watching everyone go by in the background.
Oh,
I like how we don't even need to be anywhere near in the same postcode. You can see that car, just the bright purple.
you could be in the neighboring county here in California and see that car. Philip Roberts, RCI staff member in chat, poking fun at the Mike Jones stop and go. He's calling it a slap and go 30.
I don't think Mike's going to live that one down, at least for a little bit.
Oh dear, he might actually have to change his name in the Discord. I think he might sign all of his official communications from now on as slap and go. But very funny, Philip, very funny indeed, as he will serve that penalty and continue on. As not the most hospitable pit lane is Laguna Seca. It has that nasty bend when you come into the pit lane, and it also has a nasty one coming out that cuts off what is effectively turn one, and it's very, very narrow through there.
And then we jump back to this man. Just sort of, you notice now how Chris Vining's basically just becoming his own little bubble. There's Ryan Wimbrard way in the background, but he's just sort of just lapping, just having his own little race. We'll see now that he's got clean air, like proper clean air, what lap times he can do versus the Porsches up ahead. Because that's the other thing as well, is that it only takes those guys to start battling. Leader is just sort of yo-yoing Heilman. So it only takes them to start battling a little bit, and we might even see that Vining comes back into this. We've seen it happen before with him at Silverstone. Just bides his time, waits for other people to start having a go, and then gets involved himself.
Hashtag Ask the Box. Philip Roberts asks, what's the worst pit lane entry in ACC? For those of you in chat, go ahead and tell us what you think the worst pit lane entry in ACC is. And I'm going to throw you a curveball. I don't think it's Paul Ricard. Paul Ricard is the obvious answer. And I think Laguna Seca is a good answer as well. But I don't think that's right. I think the worst one is Spa.
Spa's a bit of a pain, yeah, narrow, tight left, easy to clatter your car over the curbs. The one that I always hate, Zandvoort.
Oh dear, yeah, it's straight in, but
There's
there
like
is
a
a chicane.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a chicane before you get there. That there, basically, folks at home, what we're saying is there's no wrong answer, and all pit lanes are. They always feel like an afterthought, don't they, Ryan? They don't feel like they've the architects thought that through.
Yeah, the racetrack was always built, and then it was, oh, wait, we need somewhere to actually race the cars. But a lot of times, though, that was kind of what happened, because back in the ye olde days, a lot of times you didn't have a pit lane, or if you did, it was just a set of buildings, you know, on one side of the track that you pulled into if you had problems. So, all modern pit lanes where now you need garages and air and paddocks and places to park your £1 million trucks with all of the media coverage in the world. It gets more and more tricky, especially if you're on a small track. And jumping back to Sebastian Brunier, he's been sort of having this slight battle with McConnell. If you noticed, at one point we jumped back and McConnell had actually got back ahead, but now that position has been taken back by Brunier. 10 seconds back to Herzog, who's the next silver class driver, which he'll be wanting to get any positions he can and just any amount of points possible.
Yes, and this is not what Bernier wants. Bernier would love to just sort of drive away here. Of course, this is for championship points, so it has even more meaning than just the position. And back to our conversation about pit lanes, I am actually surprised nobody said Bathurst. It's not the world's worst pit out, but that pit in has a double mini chicane in it that can launch you over curbs, and it can wreck you. I think the pit lane that's actually caused the most offense, at least in RCI, is pit in at Bathurst for its ability to, for whatever reason, launch cars. Of course, I suspect that pit lane's built for V8s supercars more than anything else, cars that can actually take the curbs. A GT3 car doesn't necessarily like to climb a mountain.
This is why you drive a GT4 car and you just go over the curbs like you don't care, unless you're a KTM, and then do not follow that advice.
You'll be in the GT4 tomorrow morning.
Yes, correct. Another championship which will be broadcast tomorrow as well.
You can say it right.
I know. It's the CHSR, the Enduro. And we're back here as well. So for some of these drivers, it's just practice.
Yeah, I'm going to lose my mind. I am going to go to bed this evening after this race, wake up and come back here and still be commentating on some fantastic racing. CHSR is doing the 4 hours of Laguna Seca, and you can see the RCI perspective of that race live here in just about, 14 or 15 hours time. Will be me and Nick Setnick there. Ryan Mawson will be with us, but he will be in the race, so we'll be talking about him. And Chris Hay and his community, gracious enough to allow us to stream our perspectives of that race. Of course, we won the last race.
That you did, yeah. We were the team that I'm currently running, which is my own team of Flying Husky Motorsports. We weren't in that race. I was a sort of support driver for another one of the teams, so I've been driving around. But yeah, we kept an eye on the relative, and every single time the RCI car will be coming up, it's a case of, well, put the indicator on and move out of the way. These guys are still leading. We can't impede them at all.
I gotta say, every time we go abroad, we're so used to here at RCI putting on events for other teams to come in and race here. We love being the neutral ground, the level playing field, if you will, that when we started racing with our staff teams other places, it was almost a bit strange to go to somebody else's house and race. But as it turns out, we have a lot of really talented racing drivers, proper esports level drivers and teams that can win and do win. And every single time pre-race, I have mentioned to them that, somebody has to win this race, or, don't come home tonight. They have won. So I think I'll continue that effort. And it will be interesting to see if they can pull it off again. RCI basically looking for 3 in a row and 2 in a row in the Chris Hayes series.
Yes, and looking strong at that. We see that was a slight strange moment, was it? Did you also notice that Bentley pulling over?
Yeah, he pulled over in a very strange place. He to his credit, he pulled off of the track, but you'd wonder why you'd have to pull off quite that much.
I can't even see which Bentley that one was. The only Bentley we have running around is Ben Litherland, unless it was it Otti?
Oh, we're being told that Bentley, Nick Setnick, our broadcaster, has just alerted us to the fact that was a car disconnecting. That's why it looks so odd.
Ah, yeah, that'll do it.
So all credit to Nick Setnick there, eagle-eyed broadcaster. We completely overlooked that fact, but yes, indeed, that was the car connecting. It looked like it was going straight into the wall in the camera cut, but that would be why. We assumed, Ryan, that they were just pulling over for some reason.
Strange things be happening at Laguna Seca here. And when we seen, here we go with this camera angle. We mentioned it, we were going to get traffic, and well, now in front of Ben Litherland, that is one of the Race Ventura Mercedeses. It's either McConnell or I believe it might be Ted Edwards, actually, looking at the track map. Though traffic's starting to come into play with just under an hour to go, and now is where you start having to manage it. And as we said, he's got to get by and try still gap leader. We've seen a lot of times where battles have been entirely won or lost on the last few laps in some cases, just by who picks the better line getting around the traffic.
Ryan?
Yes?
Where is our race leader gone? He's not on the track anymore. Balmeister is not on the track. Our leader of the race has had a disconnection.
There they have. They've gone. Well.
Oh dear. Well, that puts Harry Conway leading overall and Benjamin Heilman leading in silver, confirming what we've been saying all along, that Harry Conway is winning the Pro Championship as they run and Benjamin Heilman winning the Silver Championship as they run. And that has done nothing but help Harry Conway and hurt Seb Brunier and Alex Rogers, who's in the pit lane.
Yeah, so now all those drivers are going to have to sort of rethink their strategy a little bit. It just means now that even more points for Heilman, who's now being promoted to basically the pole of his class, and Harry Conway now just gets a nice another spot overall, doesn't he? Is this what execute order 69 was? Has he executed it mid-race? He's done it, the madman.
Well, the thing is, RCI works under the foundation of sim racing publicly should be a sort of a free and easy to use experience. It should be fun, and it shouldn't be something that requires you to pony up essentially and bear the brunt of massive financial and logistical headaches to just get to a racetrack. And that's what RCI kind of prides itself on. You show up, you race, and you get matched with people similar speed so you can have a good race like they are having today. You'll notice there's some pros up the front. There's the 3 class leading silvers that are all bunched up together. The system works. And when other people decide that, well, perhaps maybe it shouldn't be free, that annoys people like Harry Conway.
Yes, there are certain things like that, so I'm kind of putting the pieces together now of what that is.
Yes,
but,
Jedi versus the Sith there, mate.
Yes, but as it says now, that's a sad moment for what was our leader, having a great drive. Just was looking like they were untouchable, but a disconnect, meaning that they will not be. And yeah, if you're Sebastian Brunier or Rogers, you're now just pulling your hair out even more. You're now screaming at Leader to please get round Heilman, just make it back. But even if Leader did that, now that they've shuffled up one position, it won't actually. It takes a little bit of pressure off Heilman because it won't actually mean as much anymore. He just needs to stay in front of Vining, for example.
This has complicated it just a bit. Keep in mind, Alex Rogers in the 119. He has already completed his mandatory stop for the race, just shy of the halfway mark. And the caveat to this entire season, for those of you that may not have been with us, is every race has its own random pit requirement. One race, they had to make 2 mandatory stops, taking 1 liter of fuel each. There was a race where no pit stop was required. There was already a previous race where a tire stop was required, and you get the gist. And today in the finale, the curveball is they have to take tires, which is completely different than most of what they're used to, just taking a liter of fuel to satisfy the requirement. So it is a longer stop. And in the case of Mike Jones, we've already seen a team speed in the pit lane. It is, after all, one of the more annoying pit lanes. But either way, Harry Conway leads Samir Foch, who has caught up to Conway a little bit. I'm going to ask you, Ryan, what do you do in this situation? Let's say Foch does get up to Conway. Does Conway fight hard for that position, knowing that you have to go all the way down to 6 to find the next driver in Pro?
Well, in that sense, I mean, it takes a little bit of pressure off, because as much as you have the potential to lose places, they're not places in your class. So I would say that so far, and judging by, having known Harry Conway for a little bit, I think he's just going to go for it, and he will want that win. He'll want to be the first person across the line and to take that highest step on the podium. We've seen him do it before. Of course, he'll want to be doing it again. The local yellow just coming up around this as well. That is the 59 off, another one of the Race Ventura AMGs getting going. Like I said, now that we're getting into the race, a couple of little bits of a few mistakes which might start playing into other categories' hands. I think for the pro class, it is going to be a straight duke out between Conway and Foch to the end, though.
Well, Luke Baumeister, excuse me, is in our chat, and he has confirmed what we had seen. Baumeister's game has frozen and thus ejected him from the race. His final comment, "I'm quitting sim racing. See ya, everyone." Now that is, you just gutted. Your heart goes out to Luke. That is the worst way to lose a race. I'd rather be wrecked by somebody.
Yeah, because there's just nothing that you could have done as a driver with that. It's just the game has frozen on you, especially with such a, it was looking like such a strong drive, and no one could really catch that Porsche. Did brilliant in qualifying and was looking really, really strong today. As he says, it's just, it would feel slightly better if you'd have been involved in an accident and it would have been, well, this happens, it's racing, but just sadly that wasn't racing.
Well, I hope Baumeister's comment is an idle sort of vent of frustration and not anything serious. It would be a crying shame to lose such a talent like Luke on the grid, not just for here at RCI, but in general. A ton of talent Baumeister has, and he has put it on display in this championship. Hasn't always got the results that he deserved, including today, I'm afraid to say, but an immense talent, and would love to see him back in the future. But for now, the damage has been done. Harry Conway, who was just 1 second in front of Foch, now is 2.2. I suspect that there has been a slight off for Samir Foch because Heilman is now right back behind him.
Yeah, we've seen this quite common now in this race where Foch will have a slight incident, and as we say that, see Benjamin Heilman just going a little bit deep into that corner, so it spaces them out once again. But this is what I was saying. I think over time now, the Porsches are going to start changing the way they're driving. The Lambos are probably they're changing the way that they are. It means then that just these little mistakes are creeping in, and I'm thinking that might, if they're not careful, might be the undoing of some people. So Heilman's got to sort of keep his eyes on the prize and the car on the black stuff. So far, 47 minutes to go. I expect maybe 1 or 2 more laps, and we should expect the usual wave of pit stops with a lot of people, now that there is a tyre change mandatory, just opting to split the race in half.
I think you're right, Ryan. I think that is the right call for nearly everybody. Undoubtedly, there will be somebody that will likely go to the full 1 hour mark. So 30 minutes remaining. I think some will be the majority of the people pitting. Of course, there is a pit window, but it is a very large one. There may be somebody that does definitely try to go right down to the end. This battle still continues. Seb Brunier trying to stay in front of McConnell, but going wide there in the penultimate corner will do him no justice. McConnell back around Seb Brunier, who with every lap can almost start to feel the pressure creeping in. It is a lonely, sinking feeling.
Yeah, now we've also got Fazal right behind in that number 80 Audi, which is another silver place. We've seen Seb, pull off the moves around McConnell. It seems that often what happens is Seb seems to be the more consistent driver. McConnell will make a mistake, Seb will get by, and then it will be another pass, and they're just sort of yo-yoing each other. But now that every time you look at the leaderboard and you glance at the standings, just Heilman running away with it, you just can't help but think, this was your championship to lose. And Samir Foch, that was P2, one of the first front runners to come into the pits for his mandatory stop. And going back, that's Fazal up the inside of Seb, coming into the corkscrew, just about gets it done before then, and back to single file. There is only really one way through the corkscrew. We've seen drivers go too wide, but I mean, I don't know about you, Jesse, but I won't do it.
Well, I have been forced to do it on more than a couple of occasions where I was not a compliant participant. We'll just say that. And, I can't say it on stream, but I had some choice words for those sort of people that forced the issue there. For those of you wondering, Seb Brunier with Benjamin Heilman leading, the magic number for him is he needs to be 5th in class. That is, of course, unless Heilman got the pole position. I don't think, no, he didn't, did he? Baumeister had the pole position in silver. So, yes, the ticket for Mr. Seb Brunier is he only needs to be 5th today. The unfortunate part is he isn't 5th today and has quite a bit of work to do. As Chris Vining pits out of what would be the 4th position, Harry Conway in exactly at the halfway point, as we suspected.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that that would also, so pole position went to Baumeister, and so far the only other points that we give out in the silver class would be for fastest lap, and that also at the current sitting time is Benjamin Heilman, so that's even more points for what could be our new silver championship leader by the end of this. So promoted to the lead of the race, 43 minutes to go. Sun really gone over the horizon now. You can see it start to dip dark, and tire pressures as well might start to come into play. I mean, when we started, we were 18C. It's now still 17C, but with that sun disappearing, I think it's going to drop just that little bit lower.
Rodriguez in, IPEC in, and just a handful that haven't pitted. So the story is this: if Benjamin Heilman had fastest lap and pole position, those are the bonus points we give out per class. All Seb Brunier would have to do is finish 4th, but because Heilman did not get pole, Seb only needs 5th place, even with Benjamin Heilman getting the fastest lap. So pay attention to that. And of course, they're not the only ones that are fighting for that championship. Alex Rogers is doing so as Fazal gets past there. So Rogers needs a little bit of magic here from himself, because it was only 1 point coming in between Heilman and himself. And if they both drop their lowest round, which of course there is a drop round, only your 5 best finishes count, it's basically even Stevens between the two of them. So for Rogers, it's simple. With Seb languishing back in 15th, Rogers has to be in front of Benjamin Heilman, and that hasn't necessarily happened to this point, as Renoir making some passes here. Looks like that Lamborghinis, or just the Lamborghinis in general, they come to life on new tires.
Yeah, it does look that way. You know, the pace that some of the Lamborghinis have seemed to have been restored now that they're on fresh tires. And speaking of fresh tire Lamborghini, Harry Conway now back on the charge.
Well, Harry Conway has some traffic in front of him here. This is all lap traffic, mind you. And that is the 777 of Seb Brunier up in front. That's McConnell there. So I deduce by that, and now it does update. Yes, Seb has gotten by McConnell for that position. Oh, and McConnell's going to straight through and hit the brakes at the bottom of the hill. A brilliant move after missing the corner. That was absolutely stellar driving. If you're going to miss the corner, at least make sure your rejoin is safe. And what a job by McConnell on the dirt, in the sand, to get that car stopped. Look at this. Bails on the corner. But he hops over the track, slams the wall, holds the brakes. Scary moment for him, but really smart driving. And I think that's what we should highlight there. Not necessarily the mistake, but the wherewithal to get on the binders, stop that car from rolling out into traffic. That could have been huge, but unfortunate nonetheless for the 23 that had been locked in a fight with Seb Brunier for the past 20 minutes. Massive damage will have to come in and has done.
Yeah, so that is now takes the pressure off Seb. But yeah, what a moment. Just about avoids everyone. And as he says, that could have been really ugly with cars coming over the corkscrew because it is just blind. There'll be wave double yellows. You don't know where a car could be. And if they're unpredictably rolling, then that's it. It causes just so much headache. But yeah, a Dukes of Hazzard moment there for the 23 launching it over. And if I'm not mistaken as well, speaking of cars that are coming alive now they've got new tyres, the 24 has caught really quite close up to Harry Conway. I believe that gap was much bigger in the pre-pit stops.
Well, it was, and also Samir Foch was in between them as well. Ryan Heilman was third in the overall running order. Foch must have had a slow pit stop because he's 2 seconds behind Heilman, and Heilman is now challenging Harry Conway, and it's a story of what do you do and why is Seb Brunier that slow? Was he just letting the lead lap cars through, perhaps? And the plot thickens, of course. I told you what Seb Brunier needs to do is finish 5th to have a shot to win this championship over Heilman. Well, he's 6th all of a sudden after he was 8th 2 laps ago.
Yeah, so basically Seb, if he can get around the 2 pro cars in front of him, it's sort of the tale that has been sort of in night out quite a lot, really, and it is Sebastian Brunier versus Alex Rogers. We've seen it before, and that is what it's going to come down to. And now that Seb's got a little bit of clear air in front of him, just about letting Samir Foch through in the background, we'll see if he can cling on to the lead cars, just use them to get a little bit of slipstream and a little bit of a tow and help him just get up to those. Especially if you can stick with lead cars when they're lapping people, that's sometimes the best way to pounce. Is the back marker will move out of the way of a lead car, and then it's your position to gain if you can get by them.
Oh dear, what to do? Harry Conway, I feel like every race this season has been put into an unenviable position at some point in these races of what do I do? Do I race a silver car? Do I challenge for more points? Do I pit early? Whatever it may be, good to know that Harry Conway does not have any heart problems, because surely they would have cropped up by now after the season he has had.
Yeah, it's very, like, just the pressure at a lot of races really mounting up. But I mean, you've mentioned it before. There are some drivers who just thrive under that pressure, and Harry Conway never really seems to crack under it. You know, we've seen him put under immense pressure by all sorts of drivers and just kind of walks it off.
Yeah, I don't get those people. The ice water through the veins, the very Kimi Räikkönen-like work ethic. I never understood that myself. I am the first one to get frustrated with a situation and have to tell you how I feel.
Speaking of frustrated with the current situation, you must be thinking that for James Leader. So he's trying to get around the 115 of Daniel Herzog, who does still have to pit. So, you know, you're now thinking, I am the faster driver. I've got to get by, and he's trying to chase Heilman down again. But he's now just being held up by the 115, being very defensive. So every single time he wants to go for a move, the 115 knows how to defend, puts his car in the exact right place, and you can't get by. And there's not many overtaking zones on Suzuka. Otherwise, it's just single file and hope that the person makes a mistake in front of you. And especially when you're the Porsche, all of your sort of advantage over a car in front is in the corners. If your pace is being controlled by the car in front, and you're being forced to their pace through the corners, you can't really use your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the newer tires on Leader showing you just how much they're worth, but not bearing fruit in the form of a pass just yet. Keep in mind, everybody has to take tires on their mandatory stop. Herzog hasn't done so. Leader has. And the pace difference in the corners is a bit obvious. I feel like the Porsche is also spotting the apex just a little bit better as well. We talked about Samir Foch, who lost quite a bit of time in the pit lane on that sequence of stops. 2 seconds, nearly 3 seconds, as Herzog does come in for the DH Racing Ferrari. But we talked about Foch losing time in the pit lane, some 3 seconds over Harry Conway. And all of a sudden, that Spinella Racing Lamborghini coming back to life all of a sudden. Oh no! And just as I say that, commentators curse Samir Foch off hard into the wall, and cars scatter to try and go around. Just a misjudgment there, trying to make up time. Can see second place, hits the curb hard, locks it up, and hits the wall. Heavy damage.
Yeah, that gravel takes no prisoners. I mean, you could see the car clipped to the sausage curb on the inside. The car starts to slide out. And when you're on the gravel, that was not the main problem. You could see the car was just predictably sliding. It's when half of the wheels grab the tarmac, the other half doesn't. That just pitches the car around, and you are then an absolute passenger hard into the wall, and probably quite a lot of front end damage for that car. So still going around. Will be interesting to see if they pit or don't. 33 minutes left. What has happened to the pace of that car with that hit?
Well, that's championship implications for the 5th place man in the Cup. But perhaps also as importantly is that could see the promotion of Tyler Jason LaValle in the 81 to the podium positions in Pro. But for Foch, that was not a memorable moment for him, as his team name, Spinella, is, well, he did both of those things. He spinned it and bend it.
Pretty much. Sad moment, especially on the last race where, as we said, Foch being the sort of the, you know, he's always had good results, just has never been a podium setter as it was, and looked like he was having a fantastic race just right up until that moment. A lapse of judgment and a spin off into the wall.
Well, here is Tyler Jason LaValle. He has had a very quiet race in his Team PSR Audi. 7th place, just been keeping the nose clean. And it doesn't look like a serious challenge coming from LaValle today for the Pro Series Championship. But there still is time. And if Foch loses the 3rd place, that will put even more pressure on Harry Conway to perform here. As we mentioned at the start of the show, it's almost a straight up fight between Conway and LaValle. It isn't quite as simple as that, but as opposed to how complicated the Silver Championship battle is, it is basically a straight up fight. Well, Harry Conway is doing his part. LaValle has kept it on the road to this point, but it is looking like it may be an off the podium finish for LaValle, but we'll have to pay attention to what happens with the 8. And here is Heilman for the Porcupines team. Very fond of Porsche Cup is Benjamin Heilman, also known as Stewie, one of the RCI broadcasters that you may have on any given day throughout the week.
Yeah, Stewie being the one who broadcasted with us yesterday and sort of gave us all the great angles, swaps the his broadcasting desk for his Porsche. Great fan of the Porsches. What was really good to see though is how, if you remember, I think it was last season of Night Owl, when Stewie picked up the Porsche, and it was, we never really saw Stewie anywhere in the field, and now we're talking about him with the winning of the championship. It's just really, really great to see a driver really gel with a car. When you find the car for you, it's a good feeling when you get on with it.
I seem to remember a particularly nasty incident that he had a season ago in the Porsche, and I asked him how he felt about the car, and he, very Stewie-like, mentioned all the finer points of driving the Porsche, and it was just enough information to remind me that I could never do a championship in the Porsche. I would be backwards all of the time. It's a very different animal, that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as it says, that is also the reason why I wouldn't drive the Porsche. I'm quite happy in my large Bentley, which is a little bit more stable.
Yes, but remind me what you'll be driving tomorrow, Ryan.
Yeah, the Porsche Cayman GT4.
Oh dear.
As my friend sort of put it, the squashed beetle.
Well, there you have it. 3 wide there for a second for IPEC, showing absolutely no fear going through the middle as cars on different paces all converge there 3 wide for a moment. It's not something you ever want to hear here at Laguna Seca is, hey, by the way, you're 3 wide.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you want being told over your spotter, especially considering a lot of places of this track are not 3 wide, depending on what car you're going with. And speaking of cars that are very wide, back to Chris Vining in the ETR has actually caught up to Lavale as well. So although it won't be a fight for his class, it will certainly be an interesting fight. Both drivers very proficient and being able to flex what they can do. See what the ETR can do, get up into the 5th place overall, possibly.
Lavalley will not want to give up this position, but I'm not sure Vining's going to give him much of an option. I just think the pace difference is too vast between the two. I don't know what it is about the ETR, but it's just been on rails all season. We saw flashes of brilliance from Vining all season, and we talked about earlier how the finishing position in the overall championship will not necessarily be indicative of the pace of the 101 ETR.
And this is also at RCI how we've always sort of classified what is a silver and what is a pro. It's not necessarily on pace, it's on consistency. And as we say that, the ETR trying to go around the outside, but it is a long old way around sort of turn 2, turn 3 at Laguna. Lots of marbles out there to ruin your grip. And once like that, they settle back into formation. But you can really tell, though, that Vining is going to show no mercy on Lavale, and he wants that.
Well, the plot continues to thicken here a little bit as Conway continues to pull away from Heilman, and Lavalley is fighting off Vining. I will draw your attention to Herzog in the 115 Ferrari, who is currently 5th in silver, who is only, actually, I take that back. They are quite a ways in front of Seb Brunier. It's almost half of I'd say it's about a quarter of a lap, maybe even a third of a lap. Let's see here just how far. No, it actually might be a half a lap. The 777 at the line now. No, that's about a third. So Herzog is in the 5th place position in silver. Why is that important? That is the position that Seb Brunier needs to win the championship in silver today, and it is a third of the way in front of them, and that is all he needs. Seb needs one more position.
Yeah, it's a fair old mountain to climb, but it's not an impossible one. We've seen drivers go off, drivers have incidents, and speaking of, a flash of sparks from the 81 Audi in front of Lavale, and every single time that happens, that GTR just closes up in the mirrors, getting bigger and bigger. And sort of Lavalley will know this, that if he shows any amount of, a mistake, the door open or anything, that GTR will monster you, and that will be your place lost, and that will be your top 5 for the final race of the season, possibly gone.
It's not
Yes.
entirely true about Seb, by the way, Jesse.
That scared the absolute daylights. It is actually true of Seb because Heilman.
Drop round.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Round, if Heilman gets the fastest lap and the pole position,
which he didn't,
which he didn't, Seb's drop round is going to drop him this round, unless he's 4th or above.
Will it?
Yeah, because his worst finish is a 4th.
Oh, I see. See, I wasn't taking into account the drop round.
Yep. Stewie can't win, I don't think, at this point, effectively, is what we've been talking about for the past hour.
So Mike Jones, by the way, has joined us, and he has retired his car from the race.
No,
so
I'm
you
not.
had you've not.
I'm still beating Ted.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay, well, Mike Jones joins us for an in-race interview and absolutely scared the daylights out of me. But Mike Jones, can't help but notice you got a stop go 30. RCI's own Philip has decided it's going to be called
slap and go 30? Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, so what happened there?
First time I've ever gotten a speeding penalty, by the way. Ever. Coming across the tight left-hander coming in the pit lane, I did not realize I upshifted.
Oh, I see.
And then hit the gas coming out of it, and I was like, hey, my car sounds like it's got very low RPMs, and I'm doing 47 miles an hour.
Mike Jones from the 14. What can you tell us about the track conditions as they are right now?
Track honestly doesn't feel too bad. It's cool-ish. cool for California. As I sit in California sweating my ass off. The problem is the McLaren, and this is something Seb's been complaining about the entire race too, is it's just so slippery. It's difficult to keep a hold of the 720 here at Laguna.
So we saw Vining getting around the Valley then subsequently getting even more loose. So put Vining up inside the top 5 overall. Still 3rd in class. Has Renoir in between him and leader for 2nd in silver, as Heilman has started to catch Conway a little bit now.
Yeah, they're both going past me into turn 1 right now.
And we've seen that throughout the race, that sort of Heilman and Conway have been yo-yoing each other. It does appear that both cars really appreciate the brand new tires, and that is a slight twitch from IPEC going up the hill, really wanting to catch back up to that 988 of a Lari. You can see pushing all the limits, in fact using all the track and a little bit more of, but we've seen those two yo-yo each other, and it's just, I think it will be down to a question. We saw a lot of the Lamborghinis in sort of the mid to end of the beginning to the mid race, really ailing with tires. So what will be better on the tires? Will it be the Porsche of Heilman, or will it be the Lamborghini of Conway?
The theory is Conway at the moment. From what we've been watching of Stewie, he's been sliding as much as me and Seb and Jordan have.
Folks, I've been doing the math, as you might expect, and I have been able to back up the previous comments that at this stage, with Rogers in limbo in 4th, Heilman not getting the pole position, and Brunier being outside the top 4, which would end up being his drop round, Seb Brunier in his current position, now this would have been different had he not gained 6th place earlier. When he was down in 8th, he would have lost this championship. He has gained 6th, and then now, up into 6th place. That is enough still for this to be his drop round. Rogers has climbed up enough that this will not be his drop round. And Stewie did not get pole position. What does all that mean? That means that it's almost impossible for anybody else other than Sebastian Brunier to win this championship as long as Seb does not lose 1 or 22 positions. He cannot
matter
allow...
either way. It's his drop round, right?
Oh, that's right. It won't matter.
It does not matter.
Excuse me. What I meant to say was it would only matter if maybe it was a drop round for somebody else as well, but that also wouldn't matter. It's virtually impossible, is what I'm trying to say, for Seb Brunier to lose this championship now.
Yeah, he could DQ and still win, basically.
So, as it stands, Harry Conway has been so dominant ever since the disconnect of Luke Baumeister. And he is going to, at this point, look like he is going to win the Pro Championship unchallenged by Tyler Jason LaValle. And Seb Brunier, despite being dead last at the end of lap 1, spun around in the corkscrew. He will likely be champion anyway. And it has been an up and down day for a lot of teams and drivers. So knowing that, Ryan, that has to take, surely they know that at this stage, that's taken some of the pressure off.
I'm pretty certain Seb would have done all of his maths and various conclusions before that, knowing Sebastian. So yeah, now that you know where you are and position-wise, it pretty much takes any pressure off. You've just got to lap round and finish for your win.
Well, there you have it. Conway holding station out front, winning in the pro class. Heilman, though, is not that far behind. So let's play devil's advocate for a moment, as LaValle, by the way, has caught up to Vining after a few laps. That Audi, the Team PSR Audi, did not look very good. It has rebounded here. It is threatening to take the 5th place back. But for Conway, we talked about it earlier, talk about it again. Does Heilman fight Conway? Does Conway fight Heilman?
Well, they've got around about a 9-second gap to leader, and I think that kind of it puts it in the hands of Heilman, really. If you feel that the pace of Conway is good enough in front, as that's a twitch, that is a mistake from Vining in the Nissan. LaValle back up the inside and position gained. And that is the Ferrari. No, that's not the Ferrari. That's the Lamborghini of Foch, I believe, right up behind Vining. Thought about diving up the inside, but there was not the room there. And you can see that Nissan just having another twitch, and off you go. So that will be Foch up the inside into the corkscrew. But now it's too deep.
Oh!
Far too deep. Rejoins the circuit just about. Smashes it back onto the racetrack.
Oh dear, a lot of things had to happen there in Sector 2 for all of that to shake out. LaValle back around Vining. Foch got around Vining as well, and then lost it in the corkscrew. So drop Vining back to 6th. Foch holding station in 7th place for the time being. And that was the first time we've ever seen that GTR unstable here today. It looked like it was on rails up until that point.
Yeah, and that was what I kind of had a feeling might happen, is that we're now, getting into the latter stages of the race. Is just these small mistakes are happening. And at Laguna Seca, there's no real runoff, and it is punishing if you happen to run off. But going back to this battle of Heilman versus Conway, as I says, it kind of puts it in the hands of Heilman, because it is, as much as it would be amazing to cross the line in P1 overall, he is still P1 in his class. And it kind of puts it into his hands. If he wants to fight Conway, he can, but he's got to be mindful that if they start just losing time hand over fist, leader will catch him, and then that will be a battle for your class. So it's kind of in Heilmann's hands now.
IPAC back in the pit lane. Will pit out of the 12th place position in the 224 AMG. Not sure why. Perhaps did not get the fuel calculation correct as they pit again. I have a rule of thumb, though, Ryan Mawson, about dealing and racing with certain people. It's based on do I have to interact with this person? Do I have to work with this person? Are they my teammate? And how mad will they be? And based on that formula, yes, they have to work together, Harry Conway and Benjamin Heilmann. How mad would they be? Harry Conway, mad enough to not let you live it down. And all of that to say that I don't think Heilmann would care too much about what Conway would think, despite the fact that they would be forced to work together in some capacity in the future. But
all you did was call Stewie German.
Well, I specifically
it's a very long way to call
use,
Stewie German.
Specifically, I don't say the word for that because I'm trying to allude and not for legal reasons. That's not what I said.
What you're trying to say, Jesse, is send it at turn 1.
All I'm saying is Heilmann will know that Conway is not necessarily racing for anything important here, and he saw. Heilmann did anyway, saw Seb Brunier win overall last week and said, I would like a piece of that action too. That's all I'm saying.
Which I think is a fair analogy. We'll have to see how it shakes out with that.
Well, here's the thing. We can look into the Drivers Racing channel. Stewie, as usual, or Stewie, also known as Benjamin Heilmann, by the way, for those of you that may not know, he is deafened. Harry Conway is just muted. So Heilmann couldn't communicate if he wanted to at this stage. But I'm telling you, Ryan, if I was in there, I would be threatening Conway and be like, look, I'll take you out if I have to. I'm making this pass.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen the flashing of the lights yet or anything. That's normally an indication when you start, when a driver starts becoming slightly miffed at you.
They don't have enough lights on one of these cars for me. I'm telling you, I need some of those wheeling emergency lights or something to start flashing when I get angry. As darkness does set in here, 9:25 p.m. Track's still reasonable, 17 degrees C, and about the better part of 12 minutes left in the race. And still, the race for the overall not settled. So are many positions in the field. Vining and LaValle still going at it. Foch and Rodriguez now, after Foch's earlier off. Rodriguez is creeping back into that picture. And this the battle for the win. Not a battle for in class, but it is still a win. And winning overall is just that much more sweet. So what are we thinking? Big send?
I can kind of see it happening. It is a Porsche versus a Lamborghini. And, well, the Porsche, if you're going to pass anybody, you really need to have them on the brakes. You're not going to win in any straight line sort of drags. Especially with the Lamborghini, it's not exactly a slow car in a straight line, and both cars very good through the corners, so it's going to be either someone makes a mistake, we see a tiny bit of dust kicked up there, or it's going to be a late brake maneuver if Heilmann can get close enough maybe into sort of turn 2, 3.
Very close down the straightaway. You don't usually see a Porsche close up like that on a straight, but there it is. Right up the rear tailpipe and diffuser of Harry Conway. Now, it is important here. You don't need or have to rush this. And indeed, you may see from the splitter cam, there is traffic in front of Conway. How will that affect this battle? We will soon find out, as darkness has very quickly creeped in. It's not completely pitch black yet, but it is very dark out there indeed. I don't think this race is possible in real life. I think there's a very stringent noise ordinance here that prevents night racing.
It won't surprise me. I mean, have you ever seen pictures of what they call Laguna pipes? Which I think those are the most hilarious inventions to get around noise restrictions ever. These are tailpipes that people put on their track cars, which are too loud for Laguna. And all they do is tips that point left, because people worked out that the noise station is on the right. So you put a set of tailpipes on it that point left, and then you defeat the noise regs.
The Ferrari there exiting stage right. That's very funny, and that's definitely not something that a lot of motorsport stories are interesting, because it's all just basically cheating, isn't it? It's all about how do we not break the rules while breaking the rules. And I think, as much as we like to think it's based on pure competition, realistically, it's about interpreting the rules, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that happened in any sort of big motorsport. World Touring Cars, British Touring Cars were notorious for it, World Rally Championship. And I think the best one was, there was a documentary I was watching where one of the BTCC team owners talking to another one on the pit wall, and he said, "You're cheating." How do you know? Well, how do you accuse us of this? Because we're cheating and you're faster than us.
My favorite story from my youth is reading the manual, or the regulations, the sporting regulations of a club level racing series, and it tells you what size of block you can have, or at least it did in the late 90s. I'm old, leave me alone. But it never said what sort of headers you could have, which was a very, very interesting omission.
What's that more recent one with F1 where they were adjusting their toe by pulling and pushing the wheel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. It's all about how you can get away with it. Oh no, Samir Fosh is going to lose it again. And Samir Fosh, who started the day looking like they were going to be one of the teams to beat, has not had that come to fruition. It has been a frustrating season finale for Samir. Didn't hit anything this time, but that is the second or third time that they've been fully off. And I think the grip level in that Lambo is just gone.
It just looks like, once again, half the car on the gravel, half the car not. Probably not being helped by that earlier damage, as we're seeing them continue on with that after that hard hit into the wall after the first spin. So
He
it's probably
spun literally right in front of me, so he didn't look like he hit anything. Just barely caught the edge of the dirt.
He definitely didn't, and that's very astute, Mike Jones. Mike Jones, by the way, joining us from inside the race, running 18th. I assume you're spurred on by the fact that you're beating Ted.
Yeah, because I'm 3 points ahead of Ted in the race. I told Ted, we can have a gentleman's agreement, and I'll go work on the point standings if you want to quit. He he decided not to, so we're finishing.
That a boy, Ted. That a boy, Ted. I don't know if you're listening, but that a boy. That's exactly what I would have done. Actually, what I would have done if I was Ted Edwards, I would have said, "Yeah, man, we'll do that. Wait for you to quit, and then continue racing, because I'm a devious little you know what, and I'll take it any way I can get it."
No, I was going to wait for him to park first, to be fair.
Ah, I see. The old Texas standoff there. Well, either way, closing in on the season finale, on the checkered flag for the season finale, as Benjamin Heilman still maintains very close proximity to Harry Conway, leader of Pro, leading the leader in silver. For Heilman, it doesn't look like it is possible for him to win the silver championship, despite being nearly perfect on the day. Keep in mind, had the 24 qualified on pole, this would have been a very different story indeed. And unfortunately, that has not come to pass.
He had a lot of choice words to say about himself at the end of qualifying.
I see. Well, I've never known him to mince words, Heilman. And I think that's Seb Brunier, who just tucks right in behind these two. But either way, It has been a crazy season. We've had different pit requirements for every race. It's been very interesting to see how everything
Rodriguez
has
just pinned
worked
himself,
out.
by the way.
I see. So the number 7 Porsche Rodriguez has had an incident there,
Bosch
which
is
will help
approaching.
Rogers catch up. But Ryan Mawson, it's been an interesting season. I say we come back and we do it next time.
Oh, absolutely. Same time this week. But yeah, next season looks even more exciting, and we're going to have some proper drivers. Better get used to this level of darkness, because that's going to be pretty much all of next season, all in the dark.
Right, you are, Mawson. Next season already been announced. Night Owl Season 5 is going to be the spirit and the letter of Night Owl. Every race in the dark, and it is going to be a crazy season, as you would expect. Every Night Owl season has had its own twists and turns. This season in particular, we had silver beating pro overall, and some fantastic finishes and some excellent strategy that changed races. Pretty much everything you'd want in a season. And of course, today we had a championship battle that we weren't too sure on how it was going to turn out. 3 different drivers mathematically could have won in silver today, 2 in pro. And that's all you could really ask for.
Yeah, and with the time now ticking down, the last few minutes left on that, if Benjamin Harman does want to finish that overall position, he's going to really have to think about something in the last few minutes. Samir Foch, like you said, a sad day for them. Looked really strong start, good qualifying, and really looked like they were going to be one of the drivers to beat, but just not their day to be had, as now locked in a battle with Alex Rogers in the 119. Obviously not for their class, but any mount you can claw back up after sort of those spins is it's just a nice feeling, isn't it? Well,
Yes,
this might
indeed
be
it
it.
is, and this is as close as it's ever been. He's going to run him all the way to the inside wall. Is Harry Conway. Heilman has to bail out and go around the outside. And if you'd done that to me, cousin, I would have turned you.
There was once upon a time there was a Porsche width there, and that was very unceremoniously slammed in the face of Benjamin Heilman. So that could have been the move, but not to be. You can really tell though that this is now game time. 2 minutes left. Well, 2 minutes 40 on the clock, which will be around about 2 laps.
I reckon you're right. And if Stewie did that once, he's going to be able to do that again. Only this time he knows the intent. That was the first real try from Heilman to get around Conway. And now he knows Conway is not going to go gently into that good night, both physically and metaphorically, of course. And Heilman did the gentlemanly thing there and backed out of it and tried to go around the outside. That did not happen. But I think we're going to see a little crisscross applesauce action here to end this race. How exciting. Wouldn't think of ending it any other way as Foch continues to try and get around Rogers, and even further back, IPAC, who has pitted twice now. We assume the fuel number was wrong on the 224 Mercedes.
It was. He pit 6 laps early.
Yes, indeed. And now IPEC has reclaimed 15th from Flamger now.
Thirsty old barge is at AMG though, so yeah, if you put even a full tank, it's sometimes just not enough in that car, so pitting any amount early will be disastrous for them. And Benjamin Heilman, he's basically got 1 more lap left to really do it if he wants that place. Still a little bit back from the Lamborghini, so what can he do, if anything?
Well, I think he's just going to get a good run up to a corner and give him the business here as he continues to fill the mirrors of Harry Conway. I think it's obvious that Heilman is not 100% compliant in staying second here. And look at this big run up in the corner using what the Porsche has got, the good brakes late into the zone. And a little bit squirrely there is Harry Conway. And it's going to be a spin. It's going to be a spin for Benjamin Heilman. And is that going to mean... No, leader is too far back. That will be all done and dusted. And it will be a photo, as I think Conway went off into the dirt as well on the outside of the penultimate corner. But they will cross the line together. Heilman trying to get everything he could right there.
Yeah, and you could see that with the Porsche. Just once that back end started to slip. Very well held, though, to not go all the way around. Usually once a Porsche is snapped, that's kind of all she said. And, you know, good night, Irene. You're done and dusted, but keeps the car on the road. And, yeah, the battle still sort of looks like it's on almost. One lap left to go when they did cross the line before they take the checkered. So we'll have to see how close they are when they actually cross a timing marker. The last update was 0.7 at the line.
Proper darkness here to end this race. The leader on the final lap of the race, even though I heard that yesterday and they weren't, but I am convinced that they are today, as I am also convinced that Conway hit the dirt almost on purpose to let Heilman catch up and have one more shot at this. This is crazy racing coming to the line. What can Heilman do? Coming to the checkered flag, not only of the race, but the season. Doesn't look like it's going to be on. Harry Conway is going to outlast Benjamin Heilman. Conway, who took the lead after an early disconnect, has led the entire way since then. Harry Conway wins Night Owl Season 4 finale and the championship in Pro. Heilman comes home second and winning in silver. Leader will be third. Renoir will come home fourth. Top five for Vining. And Vining will finish third, of course, in the silver class. Renoir second. LaValle will come home with a podium in the final round. Third today. Rodriguez, Rogers, Foch, and Alari, the top 10 today. Herzog, Akar, Brunier, Daly, Flamger, Ipek, McConnell, Jones, and Edwards are the finishers. And you see Conway and Heilman celebrating the wins. Harry Conway winning in Pro, and of course the championship as well. And Seb Brunier will come home a slightly disappointing sixth place. That will be his drop round for the championship, which means with all of the circumstances that happened today, Seb Brunier will be your silver champion. And now we're going to get our broadcaster, Nick, to switch over boxes so that we can talk to all of our winners from today and the championship. All right, folks. Well, we promised you a good race today, and we definitely got one right down to the finish. Well, we're going to start with Conway and Heilman. Boys, what on earth happened there at the end?
Well, yeah,
I mean, I was just very close behind him, so the dirty air, I had no downforce and just spun it.
yeah, and I pretty much watched him spin and then decided to do it myself as well.
Oh, so that wasn't on purpose. I saw you fall wide into the dirt. I thought maybe I'll give Stewie another shot. That wasn't the case.
I was just watching him and I was like, "What is he doing?" And then I did the exact same thing because I was looking behind me.
Conway, you put one of the filthiest blocks on Stewie coming down the straightaway on the third to last lap there. What were you thinking?
I was just taking the racing line. That was it.
No. Stewie, what did you think about that nasty, dirty triple X rated block?
I was kind of surprised he wasn't close to the wall already, so I was expecting him to move to the left. So, yeah. not really surprising, that block. And it's not like I had to win the race, so I'm good.
No.
Just a bit of fun fighting there in the end.
I would have preferred you to spin him because that would have been more interesting television. Anyway, moving on. Congratulations, Harry Conway. You not only won the race, you won the championship. What are your feelings and thoughts?
It's on pace alone. That's all I can say, really.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, Conway, it wasn't easy, was it? You fought all
No,
season.
it
There
was
were
not.
setbacks, and I mean, to have it all culminate in a championship where you win the last race, that's an exclamation point on the season, I would think.
Yeah, especially in this car around here, it's pretty tough. With Stewie in the Porsche just hounding me for 45 minutes, it did not help.
Yeah, for some reason at the start you were quicker, and then towards the end you just...
Yeah, my tyres
Nice.
were squares at that point.
Same happened to Fog as well.
Yeah. I don't think you can say that on stream.
He said Fosh, but he has a German accent, so
Fog, whatever.
Meanwhile, Seb had the opposite experience today.
yeah.
Yes.
So we are, congratulations, Harry Conway, the winner of the race overall, and of course the Pro Championship as well. Well done.
Thank you.
And we will go to Stewie now, the winner in silver today. Stewie, it wasn't the hardest race I've ever seen you have to run. You were mostly fighting pro cars today.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want to fight anybody because, I mean, I don't know what happened to Baumeister. I think even if he would have won or the guy behind me would have been in front, I think I would have still gotten enough points to win the championship. So I was just taking it very chill and yeah, just racing. And luckily at the end, having a bit of a fight with Conway there.
Yeah, so Baumeister, his ACC froze on him, and he vowed to quit sim racing after that in the chat. Is
that
what
sucks.
happened to him. That very unfortunate, but a win to end the season. It was a pretty special season, though. Several wins and some really good runs. Are you coming back next season?
Absolutely.
Are you coming back to avenge your second place in the championship?
Did I have the, do I have the second place?
I'm doing the points right now. I'll let you know in just a second.
So Mike Jones is the one doing the math, as it turns out, and I'm going to talk to who we assume has won the championship. We'll start with the race.
Hang on. Seb, you did not get pole position, right?
No,
No, at all.
Baumeister.
tied.
Baumeister.
296 tied.
It's all down to the fastest lap of the race, and so if
And did I mark Stewie's fastest lap? This is with Stewie as fastest lap. If Stewie got fastest lap, I can check here in a second. Then they are tied for the finish.
I didn't.
yeah,
Oh dear.
I think Baumeister got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will verify that, but in that case, you
Of course you
lost
will.
by those couple points.
Did you already take the drop round?
Yeah.
No?
So what made this so difficult, boys, was Seb running sixth, or actually out of that was his drop round, and I was not taking that into account for any of this because I know he had finished fourth before, but I hadn't realized that this would take the place of his drop round, not his fourth place finish. So I was counting his points for this race as not being the drop round. So yes, what Stewie had to do was pole fastest lap and win to challenge. And if they tie, I don't know who wins that because it goes back to wins, and I think they would have equal wins.
We have two wins each.
Exactly.
We have a system for it. It goes wins, pole positions, fastest laps, then podiums, then flip a coin.
Yeah, if you get to the fifth tiebreaker, you're gonna flip a coin. I think is that we need to put that in the rule book, by the way, so nobody tries to weasel out of that in the future in case that does happen. Well, Seb,
unless Baumeister's lap doesn't count because he disconnected, then he
no, the fastest lap will count. He just won't get points for finish.
So Seb, while we're doing the points here, talk us through this race. It was very difficult. There was a spin on the opening lap in the corkscrew. Walk us through your race.
Yeah, I knew it would be difficult. My quali wasn't so far from my personal best, but a couple of tenths behind. But I could not expect much. I was not completely out of pace. I was 1.1 second from pole, so it's not that far off. And yeah, the opening lap, a bit of a traffic jam at the corkscrew, and a car didn't slow down enough behind me and hit me, spun me. So yeah, that was not really in the sense of what I wanted, but in the right direction. So I was last at the end of lap 1, so with a bit of damage, and yeah, it was it was difficult. So I knew it was completely out of my control. So it was just a matter of doing a clean race and not impede anyone, not collect any penalties or anything, which I think I did. So, but
So
yeah.
I am confirmed 296 points for Seb, 293 for Heilman, 281 for Rogers.
F.
Well, in that an F for Heilman, but congratulations, Sebastian Brunier, winning the GT or the Night Owl Silver GT Championship for season 4. Congratulations. I know it's not how you wanted to win it, but what a recovery. Talk us through it. You were 11th in class, Seb, at the end of lap 1, and you
Yeah.
got all the way back to 6th place. Obviously, it doesn't matter because it was a drop round, but where were you mentally at the end of lap 1, knowing that you were so far behind?
Well, I knew I couldn't do anything because my pace could not allow me to do a recovery, much more recovery than I did, and the only thing I could have expected without this incident at the start was to let the racecraft talk and avoid incidents and try to do something, but I had to make a podium to gain points. With the drop round, I had to either drop a 4th place or drop today's race. So I just race for the pleasure of racing, and it's not because I knew already I could not gain anything that I had to sign out. That's not my mindset.
Do the checkered no matter what.
Exactly. The alone team name, because my teammate did not finish the first 2 races before signing out of the championship. But yeah, no, it's exactly the mindset. So it was a bit difficult because it's no longer in your hands, and I know Stewie had everything he needed to do it. Alex Rogers also showed quite a lot of pace during practice this week. It was not as good, unfortunately, for him tonight, but he had the possibility to win the championship as well. So yeah, what is fun in the end is that the 3 of us got 2 wins each. So yeah, that was tight, definitely tight.
Seb, you were so consistent all season long. You came in today, your worst finish was 4th. That is excellent. And in subsequent weeks, here's what happened to you. You won your first class race at RCI, and then you won your first race overall at RCI, and a week later, your first championship. Absolutely incredible progress. There's nothing left for you to do. You've done it all in 3 weeks, man.
For silver class, there is quite a lot to do then to do something in pro class because it's not the same pace. So I know on consistency I can do things. It definitely unlocked something confidence-wise, because it's the first time also I win in a major league. So it's quite fun to do it around the 1-year anniversary of RCI. So that's quite fun. But I already did won some championship, but it was on sim racing system, so it was more open championships, and you could do the races multiple times. It's a slightly different format. But yeah, it's the first time I win a championship in a major league. So yeah, I'm quite happy.
And by the way, Seb, that championship you're talking about on SRS, I was in that, and you beat the crap out of me. Neither one of you, by the way, Conway or Brunier, neither one of you are coming back for next season, I believe. Is that not right?
Yeah, that would be too much sign out for me. I'm
Yeah.
unavailable a couple of times, so unfortunately, not next one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is wide open for Night Owl Season 5 coming at you soon. It will be all night races. Of course, Night Owl called Night Owl because it took place predominantly where it was mostly nighttime in the Europe time zones. And of course, we sprinkled in night races in there. Well, next season, Season 5, will have only races in the dark. And of course, I think there'll also be random pit requirements for that as well. It's going to be very, very crazy stuff. And of course, we will have brand new champions because Harry Conway and Seb Brunier will not be competing in Season 5. Well, Harry Conway, congratulations on winning the Night Owl Pro Championship. Seb Brunier, congratulations on winning the Night Owl Silver Championship. Stewie, congrats on your class win. Ryan Mawson, final thoughts for the group.
Wow, pretty much what an amazing race to be watching. I'm glad that I got to commentate on this season. It's had some crazy races, some ups, some downs, and a lot of times you think, I'm glad that I'm not sat in that race car.
Well, everybody, thank you for staying up late in the European zones and watching us. If you have enjoyed, why not like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a single race. Me and Nick Setnick, our broadcaster, will be back with you in the morning in just about 13 hours or so to bring you Chris Hayes' Endurance Championship, the RCI perspective with all of our teams. We are undefeated in the championship thus far. And we would love to have you come hang out with Nick and I and enjoy your afternoon with us. And a big thank you to all of the partners here at RCI that make this race and every race possible. More information about all of them in the description. And if you're looking to get involved with sim racing, join our Discord and sign up. We have splits for everybody, esports pros right down to just starting rookies. And we would love to have you for an upcoming season. On behalf of everybody here at RCI, thank you for taking part. Thank you for watching, and thank you for a fantastic season. Congratulations to all of our winners this year. And we will see you in Season 5 in the future. On behalf of myself, Jesse Lee, Ryan Mawson, and Nick Setnick, thank you and have a good night.
See you at Season 5.